Hello everybody and welcome to a tier list video. Yay, everyone loves tier list videos, right? Today we are going to be doing a tier list. We're going to be ranking the characters in Fire Emblem Gaiden. So for those who know or don't know, I just finished my Iron Man playthrough of Fire Emblem Gaiden. That's part of the series where I plan to do an Iron Man of every Fire Emblem game. So we're down 2. It's a decent start. Now for this tier list, I was thinking about maybe not doing this because the thing is, I'm not very familiar with Fire Emblem Gaiden. That is the first time I've ever played it. I have played Echoes, but I never played Gaiden before. If you watch the playthrough, you are probably fully aware that I was learning a lot of things throughout. So this one, certainly more so than my Fire Emblem 1 tier list, and certainly more so than a lot of the other tier lists that I made, I'm probably not going to be super confident in. This is going to be probably a little bit more of me just kind of talking through the characters for my own benefit, and then for anyone else's. I mean, certainly if you have any like issues with the tier list in any way, feel free to mention it as always. But it should just kind of be a fun way to go through the characters and kind of get my my thoughts out there. I think fun thing to do after the playthrough. But yeah, let's just get right into it. I don't want this to be too long. So we're gonna start with Alm, of course. Now Alm, I actually think I'm gonna put an S. It's kind of weird because when we did the Fire Emblem 1 tier list, I put Marth in S. In fact, I believe Marth I put as the best character in the game. Which, I still stand by, but it's just really bizarre because if you've played especially a lot of the middle Fire Emblem games, like the GBA games, like Tellius, the Lords are not the best characters. In fact, oftentimes they're some of the worst. So it's really bizarre to see... Oh, it's picking up my mouse. I didn't realize that. It's really bizarre to see Alm and Marth be the best characters in their respective games, but I really think Alm is the best character, or at least deserves to be an S. There's a few reasons for this. I think Alm is really good early on. There's no Jagged in this game. You have the villagers. Lucas is also pretty good, but Alm is really useful for basically all of Act 1. In Act 2, when other people are promoting, I think he sort of falls off just a touch. But once you get that Royal Sword and then into Act 3, he's right back to being amazing. Not only that, but once he promotes, he gets the ability to use bows, and bows are really, really strong in this game. The Regal Sword is really good. The ability to use bows is really good. His growths are pretty good, honestly, considering how bad the growths are in general in this game. Alm is, of course, the only person that can beat the final boss. I don't think that really adds too much to him, but I think he's a pretty solid unit throughout his journey. I will say the biggest issue with him is just his class. The ability to use bows is awesome, but his movement is really bad. But warp is kind of a big deal in this game, so low movement isn't like the worst thing in the world. I think the ability to use bows, the ability to get the Royal Sword, I think enough combines him to make him an S tier unit. Although maybe he should be a little lower. Then we have, I believe this is Gray. This is going to be tough, just like the first game, because a lot of these look really similar. So we're going to figure it out as we go. I believe, I'm trying to look around and see if anybody else is Gray. I believe we're going to just say this is Gray. Gray, I'm going to put an A. And actually, I'm going to grab Tobin right now, too. So Tobin and Gray, along with Cliff, are your starting. This, I believe, is Cliff. So these are your 3 starting villagers. The way that villagers work in this game, for those that don't know, is they're pretty weak. Gray, I believe, can promote immediately. Tobin can promote after like 1 or 2 levels, and then Cliff takes a little while, and then you can choose whatever you want for them. I think there's a lot of value in that. You can basically define what you want for your team. Now, even though I think this is really powerful, I'm going to put Tobin and Gray in A tier, mostly because their growths are absolutely terrible. Growths are not that important in this game because you're really more defined by the base stats for your promotions. And these 2 units are still awesome because the base stats for the promotions as you progress through the game are going to be good enough depending on what you promote them into. But Cliff, I think, is a little bit better. That's why I have him in S, because he actually has good growths. So you can sort of combine all the same benefits that these 2 have, which is being recruited earlier and the ability to choose whatever class you want with actual good growths. So I think Cliff is definitely one of the better characters in the game. I really like him. You can have him be whatever class you want. Again, his growths, specifically in speed and defense, which are both pretty useful stats, are quite high. And then Tobin and Gray, I think just the ability to promote them into whatever you want gives them a lot of utility. So I like them a lot. Next up, we have Bowie. Bowie I don't like a whole lot. He's one of the mages that you get. I will say it's nice that you get Bowie extremely early. That is the one benefit that he has. And I believe he does learn Excalibur relatively early, but his base stats are really bad. He's really slow, which is an issue. If he was a little bit faster, and you can give him some speed from the first speed shrine, which I think might be a good idea. I did not do that. He also has a pretty good defense growth, which is sort of nice, but it's just like, it's really hard for him to deal a ton of damage. He has really awful speed. I just had a really hard time doing much of anything with him. He's kind of nice to just have, like, have around. I will say, I doubt that I'm going to be putting anyone in D, and certainly I'm not going to be making an F tier for this, because the thing is, in this game, you basically deploy all the units for both teams in every single battle, so it's really hard for anyone to really be that awful, because everyone can offer at least a little bit of utility. Like, Bowie is still a fairly useful unit, it's just that he's not very good. Next up we have Katria. I think Katria is absolutely amazing. I think I'm going to put her probably still under Ulm. Maybe she should be ahead of Ulm. Katria is awesome. There's another thing to know about this game, it's that Pegasus Knights and Falcon Knights is a really busted class, specifically on Celica's route. I'll talk about this with Claire, who's the Falcon Knight that you get on Ulm's route, and why she's a little bit different. But Katria, along with Paula, are the first Falcon Knights that you get, or Pegasus Knights, sorry, on Celica's route. And yeah, they're awesome. They have pretty good bases. They're immediately pretty impactful. When they promote, the bases of Falcon Knights, specifically HP, attack, and defense, are all really high. Plus, and this is the big deal, they get huge bonus damage against monsters. And most of Celica's route is either mages or monsters, and they're good against all of that. She also comes with the Angel Ring, which is really good against magic users. That's not really relevant to her, but it can make them stronger. But yeah, I think Katria is absolutely insane. She's probably the best unit on Celica's route, question mark. She's really, really good. Next up we have Celica. I think I'm going to put Celica in B. I'm not really sure how to rank Celica, to be completely honest. She's pretty darn good at the beginning of her route, but her growths are not really that different from Alm's, but I just had a really hard time like giving her experience. She's a lot more frail than Alm. That's her big issue, I would say. And her like mix of being able to use like swords and magic just never really resulted in that much damage for me. It was really hard to do much of anything with her. But she promotes she can heal, which is pretty nice, and she has access to a decent amount of good magic. But yeah, I just had a really hard time using Celica. Her lack of bulk is a huge issue for her. And offensively, I just never felt like she really found her own. Maybe she belongs in A, maybe I just didn't use her enough, but I think she's a pretty okay unit throughout Celica's route. I don't think she's really anything too special. Next up, we have Claire, who I mentioned earlier. Claire is the Pegasus Knight on Ulm's route. Now, here's the thing. I just mentioned the Pegasus Knights and Falcon Knights are extremely strong, and they are, don't get me wrong. But the reason that I don't think Claire is anywhere near as good as Katria is because, well, she's on Ulm's route. And Ulm's route is a lot less mages, a lot more physical attacking units, and a lot less monsters. Also, Claire has pretty awful bases. Her growth, at least in speed, is okay, but she's extremely frail. Obviously, flying utility is there. I still think I'm going to put her in A. On my... Here's the thing, I might be getting a little bit biased here because on my playthrough, she actually died, and then I revived her on Celica's route, which is kind of funny. On Celica's route, she was awesome. I promoted her as quickly as I could, and then along with Katria, she like dominated, right? So on my playthrough, she's probably just as good as Katria, but I don't think that's really the case. I don't know how you want to factor that in. I don't think killing her and then recruiting her by reviving with Celica is really a very good strategy, but if you do that, I think she might be a little bit better, but still, the promotion to Falcon Knight is really powerful if you can get there, even if she's not going to get as much bonus on Ulm's route. But I think she deserves to be there just because it's so strong. Next up, we have Cleve. I think I'm going to put Cleve in C. Cleve's kind of interesting because when he's first recruited, he's actually pretty darn good. And I think if you could get him to a Gold Knight, he would actually be a pretty solid unit. That's going to be for a lot of these different units. If you can get people to their third promotion, I think they're really good. For me, you get Matilda not too late after him, you have like Ulm, and your villagers are probably carrying. It just became really difficult to actually like get him to see that much combat. I could see him being in B just because he's a really good class, and again, if you can get him to a Gold Knight, he's really good, but I think he's recruited just a little bit too late, and it's a little bit too hard to get him experience. Maybe I'll put him at like the top of C, but he is a really good class, so I will give him that. Next up, we have Dean. I will admit on my playthrough, I did not recruit Dean, I chose Sonia. Although I think Dean is probably the better choice, if I'm being honest. I'm going to put Dean in B, maybe next to Celica. The biggest benefit to Dean has pretty good bases, but the biggest benefit to Dean is that he is already halfway to a Dread Fighter. You need to get to level 10, he has a level 5, I think it's Myrmidon is the one before Dread Fighter, something like that. Dread Fighters are awesome, especially on Celica's route, because they have an insane amount of resistance, and they're really fast and they're pretty strong. So I could even see him being higher, maybe even an A. But he's recruited a little bit late, but he is a really like easy and free Dread Fighter, so perhaps he should even be higher. But yeah, I think Dean is a really strong unit, but again, I didn't recruit him, so it's kind of hard for me to rank him. Then we have Dude. Dude's tough. I don't like Dude very much. She's kind of cool. She has good magic. Her growths are, I think she's the one with 30s across the board, and that might be Sonya. Oh no, I think she has like a 50% magic growth, but everything else kind of sucks. She's just so frail, and she's really slow too. It's hard to double. The thing is, you don't get that much utility out of just dealing a shit ton of damage from like one magic attack. You need to be doubling, you need to be doing something else, and magic hit isn't that good in this game. Now obviously you can do things to fix her, stuff like the magic ring gives her a lot of range, stuff like the speed ring allows her to double, and then you can really start getting into some powerful stuff, but she really needs that stuff to be good. She also doesn't promote until level 20, and you don't really get any bonus from that except the ability to heal. She does have access to really good magic, but I think her late recruitment, I just have a really hard time rating her over C. I put a lot of effort into like giving her the speed ring and kind of trying to go crazy with her in my playthrough, and she still wound up being like kind of mediocre. She is kind of nice if you can do that at killing barons, and Almsrod is not exactly flush with good magic users. There's Ruto, and then there's the potential of one of the villagers, but I still don't think that she's really that good. Maybe I'm underrating her, but I found her pretty mediocre. I think you really have to try to find her combat. Next up we have Est. Est does have the benefit of being a Falcon Knight on Celica's route, but I think is recruited just a bit too late to be up there in S with Katria. Her bases are really low, her base level is really low, but it's not that hard to gain her levels. Her growths are of course good, but yeah, even with my playthrough where I really tried to give her I put a lot of effort into her, she still wound up being nowhere near as good as Claire and Katria because it just took so long to train her up. Perhaps she should be lower because she's recruited so late, but she's such a good class that I have a hard time putting her lower. Like if Katria and Paula can both, especially Paula, can very easily die in her join chapter, so you may be stuck with one or no Pegasus Knights, and in that case, Est is extremely good. So I have a hard time putting her lower than A just because of her class, but she definitely has some issues with that sort of stuff. It's important to mention here as well that villagers cannot become Pegasus Knights. They can become mercenaries, and Dreadfighter is probably the other best class, with like Bow Knight being pretty good too, but they can't become Pegasus Knights. So if they could become Pegasus Knights, well, they're on Alm's route, but yeah, they can't become Pegasus Knights. Next up we have, I believe, oh man, this is gonna try me. I believe this is the, oh no, this is Forsyth, I think. Yeah, I believe this is Forsyth. I like Forsyth a decent amount. I think I'm gonna put him in B. I think he's solid. I think him and, which one is Lucas? I think this is Lucas. I'm gonna put them next to each other. I wound up using Forsyth a bit more, but I think they're both pretty useful. Lucas is recruited really early. Once you get to that knight promotion, you get enough attack and defense to really start allowing them to control space. And Alm's route is a lot of physical attackers and a lot of wide open spaces. So knights are actually pretty darn useful. They have all the same problems that knights normally have. In fact, barons stay with 4 movement, which is really, really bad. But I still think that both of them are like, offer you enough utility. Perhaps one is like enough better than the other one. Again, I use Forsyth a lot more, but I don't really know that he's that much better than Lucas. I just kind of wind up using him more, and I think they both share about the same utility in that respect. Next up we have Jenny. Now here's the thing. Clerics in this game have a lot of different utility staves that they can use. Training them is really annoying, but if you do, you get a lot of payoffs. Now Jenny doesn't learn Warp, unlike Silk and Tita, who are the other 2 clerics or saints in the game. But she does get stuff like Illusion, which allows you to summon some units, so I think that's really useful. I think I'm going to put her at the top of A. I think I will likely put the other 2 in S just because they have access to Warp. Although Tita's recruited quite a bit later. I could see her being an S. Clerics in this game are really, really strong. Again, Illusion allows you to summon units. We all know how busted that is in Fire Emblem games. In fact, I think I might just even put her in S. I believe she does eventually get like Physic and Fortify and that kind of stuff. Also, once they promote, they get to use Angel, so they even offer some offensive magic, although Nosferatu is pretty shitty. But yeah, I think just the ability to summon units with Illusion is so, so powerful. So I have a hard time putting her lower than S, I think. She's really, really good. Maybe I should even put Cliff down here. I think maybe actually Cliff should go down here, because these units have like something really special to them. Whereas while Cliff is really good, I kind of like Cliff being like the top of A. He's really good, but there's nothing really special about him. Oh, this is Gray. Okay, my bad. This, I believe, is actually Gray. So who's this fella? That's a good question. Let's move on to this guy. Yeah, who is this guy? Give me 1 sec. Okay, I've solved the mystery. This is Atlas. I forgot all about Atlas. So Atlas is a villager that you get on Celica's route. Also cannot become a Pegasus Knight. I don't know how good Atlas really is. He's got the nice stuff that these other villagers have going on, where you can promote him into whatever you want. But he's going to be so far behind. I promoted him into a mercenary. which I thought was pretty good. He got a decent amount of speed, and his base strength is quite good. Also, he's good HP, but it's just really hard to like give him enough experience, especially with the Falcon Knights flying around. I think I'm gonna put him at like the bottom of C. I have a really hard time like imagining that Atlas can ever really be that good. Also, his growth suck, so he's into this same category where you really need to promote him to get any stats. And you can do that, and he can become a dread fighter, but I just had a really hard time. He needs to become a sword fighter, then a mercenary, or I think it's mercenary, then sword fighter, then dread fighter. So he's got a long way to go. So these two are Jesse and Kamui. I believe this is Kamui or Kamui. I'm gonna put Kamui at B, and then I think I'm gonna put Jesse at like the top of C. Here's the thing, both these units can become dread fighters, which again is an amazing class. Perhaps Kamui should even be a little bit higher. Jesse's recruited, I think, a little bit late. I think maybe I'm even going to put him in B. The ability to become a dread fighter is quite nice. I did not use either of these units, so I have kind of a hard time ranking them. But I think the ability to become a dread fighter. So here's the way that I would do this. Forsyth and Lucas, I think, are worse characters than these two in the end, but they have more utility. Like, these two will always do pretty good work for you. All you have to do is get them to a knight, which is really easy to do. These two, on the other hand, don't really provide a lot unless you can get them to a dread fighter. And again, they have to get 2 promotions to get to that point. So perhaps these should be switched, but I think these are all like pretty solid units. These two are much better if you train them. These two are much better just in general. So next up we have, oh god. Okay, this is Leon, this is Python. Let's just do these right now. I knew they were the archers, I couldn't remember which one. My Leon died, I believe. Archers are really good in this game, given that they have base 3 range, 1 to 3 by the way, so they can also attack at 1 range. And if you give them special bows or get them to their final promotion, they get up to 5 range, which is pretty ridiculous. Leon, I think, is a pretty solid unit. I'll probably put him in B just because he's a decent class, but I think probably worse than these two's class. Python, I think, is a little bit better because he's recruited quite a bit earlier. I think I'm going to put him maybe like here-ish. I think also a B unit. I think B is a pretty good place to put a lot of these units. Like, basically all of these units have pretty non-existent growths, but if you get them to promotion, they're quite good. So my Python, for example, I got to a sniper, and even in the end, he was still like giving me some pretty decent utility, shooting wizards and stuff. But it's really hard unless you laser focus on these guys to actually get them to the 3rd promotion, and that's when they get really strong. So I think they're both solid units, but not really that amazing. Then we have Ruto. Ruto's pretty nice because he's a pretty decent level on recruitment, and he knows Excalibur, which is a pretty powerful tome, but his stats are pretty mediocre. Wizard is a pretty nice class to have access to. I think I'll put him under Celica. Maybe he's worse than Dean. I don't know. I used him a lot, mostly because my promoted, the villager that I promoted into a mage, Tobin, died, so I kind of needed him to and my healer died. So I kind of needed him to heal until I got Tita. But I think he's a pretty okay unit. Again, a unit that really needs to get to that 3rd tier, but is reasonably close on recruitment. And Excalibur, especially when fighting barons and stuff, allows you to actually get experience pretty easily. So I think he's an okay unit. Then we have May, who I think I'm just going to put down here by Bowie. I think she's pretty similar to Bowie. She's a little bit better just because her base speed is good enough to the point where she doesn't get doubled, at least early on, and she actually doubles sometimes. But she has the same problems with Bowie, where her growths are just pretty crap across the board. Also, the female mage promotion is like 20 and not 12, which means getting her to promotion is all but impossible. So you're really relying on her growths, and her growths, again, just aren't good. So, but she does offer a little bit of utility. Then we have Matilda. I like Matilda a lot. She's one of those units that actually has okay growth. She's got like 30s across the board, which is better than most, I'll say that. Also, she's a promoted unit. She's level 1, but it's really not that hard to get her to a gold knight, and she's pretty good as a gold knight. So I'm going to put her like, not in A, maybe at the top of B. I think she's like top of B material. She's good right off the bat. She's a little frail, I will say that. But the nice thing is that Gold Knight gives you a bunch of HP and defense. So if you can get to that point, that'll fix that. And it's really easy. Again, unlike these other units, it's really easy for her to get to that point because she's a great class. She has good enough, at least offensive basis, so it's really easy to find her kills. And again, once you get her to a Gold Knight, she's really, really good. Next up, we have Myson. Myson, I think, is just recruited too late. He's a really good unit, but he's recruited so late. I think I'll put him in like the middle of C, maybe, along with these guys. Maybe he should be higher, but again, he's recruited so late. He will slot in and immediately give you combat, which is nice, but I think these other 3 will also give you combat, and Myson's just recruited a lot later. Then we have Noma, who's kind of similar to Myson. In fact, he's pretty similar to Myson. He's recruited before Celica's final part. I think probably next to Mice. He's recruited a little bit earlier, but he's about the same as Mycen. His stats are not great, but he has access to a lot of really good magic. I think he's okay. I think he's a decent unit, but again, just recruited a little bit late for me to really be that good. Then we have Paula. Now, I will say this right now. Paula got murdered for me, and I never got to use her. But I have to imagine that while I still think Katri is better, just because her growths are a little bit better. Also, Katri is a little bit more focused on speed, which is what you want for a Falcon Knight. Paula is more focused on like attack and defense. I still can't imagine that Paula is that much worse than Katri. I think they're probably about the same. If my Paula didn't die, I probably would have trained her, and they would have gone nuts on my Celica's route. So this is a little bit speculative because again, she did die for me, but yeah, I can't imagine her not being a really solid unit. Next up, we have Saber. I do think that Saber is one of the better units on Celica's route, especially early on, because he gives you some like decent physical bulk that you really struggle with, given that you have a bunch of mages and like Celica as your units, even when you get Pegasus Knights. Where do I want to put him? I think maybe here. I don't know that he's as good as the villagers. Maybe he's actually better. Maybe the top of A. I do like Saber a decent amount. What I like about Saber is that he's the easiest person to become a dread fighter. Now his growths suck, right? But his one good growth, which I think is like 40%, I think he has like an HP and a defense growth that are both pretty good. And the thing is, he's gonna get speed when he promotes to a dread fighter, and his strength can kind of be remedied by like different swords that you'll get throughout. So I don't really mind it so much. But the biggest thing again is that he offers you that early combat that you really need, and he's the easiest person on Celica's route, barring maybe Dean, to get to a dread fighter. So I do think he's, along with Celica and like the Pegasus Knights, better than Celica, but other than the Pegasus Knights, probably the best unit on Celica's route. And Jenny, I guess. Next up, we have Silk. So Silk I'm going to put ahead of Jenny because Silk gets Warp at like level 8, I think, or something like that. Warp is extremely good, and there's no limit to Warp uses in this game. It just takes HP, which is busted. There's also a whole bunch of rings and stuff that will recover 5 HP every turn. So Warp is essentially just free every single turn. I haven't really delved too much into like the rest of the magic abilities that they get, but the biggest thing is that she's an early healer, good, and she has Warp. So yeah, absolutely amazing. Next up, we have Sonya. Again, I do think that Sonya is the worst choice over Atlas, but I'll probably put her right next to Atlas. She has pretty good bases. Again, she has the problem of she can't promote until level 20, but she has pretty solid looking bases. Her growths are pretty solid. I believe she's the one with 30s across the board. She has, I think, Excalibur at base, which is pretty nice. She's a really good recipient of the magic ring. Perhaps she should be a little bit worse, but I think if you choose her over Atlas, she'll probably be about this good. I think she's a solid unit. Next up, we have Tita. So for me, Tita was way better than these two, but I think she's probably right in the middle. She's recruited quite a bit later, but the nice thing about Tita is that you don't have to like grind her at all. Again, training clerics really, really annoying because all they have when they're unpromoted is Nosferatu, which seems great, but it only has a 50% accuracy. So it's really annoying to get them kills. Tita starts promoted, immediately has the ability to use Physic and Angel. Angel's a really strong tome that's effective against monsters. She also gets Warp and Fortify if you train her a little bit, along with Illusion. Her Illusion is Pegasus Knights, which is really nice. Maybe she should be higher than Silk, but Silk is just recruited so much earlier and can get Warp, so I have a hard time doing that. But she's awesome. Again, just having access to Warp. Fortify is also just busted. It hits the entire map. It does take 12 HP, but again, you can pretty much just set up like her and another healer and just Fortify every single turn, which is about as busted as it sounds. Next up, we have Volbo. I like Volbo a bit. Volbo has the unfortunate task of being a really slow physical attacker on a map or a route filled with magic users. You have to be really careful with him. I do think he's okay. I don't know that he's better than these two, but I think he's better than these two. I actually do think he offers some pretty decent utility. Mine actually, I believe, did get to a Baron, so I used him a decent amount. Again, getting physical like attributes on Celica's route is not free, and even though you're fighting magic users a lot, getting somebody that can actually take physical attacks, especially considering how many like mercenary dread fighter type units you fight, is actually pretty useful. So I think Volbo's okay. Maybe he should even be a little bit higher, but again, he does really struggle on her route most of the time. And then the final character we have is Zeke, who I believe is Camus or Camus or whatever his name is from Fire Emblem 1, but in this game he is quite strong. The only problem is that he's recruited a bit late. I think I'll still put him at the bottom of A, maybe even a little bit higher. Here's the thing, Zeke is awesome, and while he's recruited late, he's not recruited that late. He He also has like a 55% speed growth, which is kind of weird, but mostly you're just in it for the bases. For me, he was like about as strong as Matilda when I got him. Maybe you should even be higher. I don't know about being higher than these guys. I'm not really sure. Zeke is really, really good, but he's also recruited a bit late, so I have kind of a hard time placing him. But I think somewhere in A is probably a pretty good place to put him. And yeah, that's it. That's my tier list. Again, if you agree or don't agree with any of these placements, absolutely feel free to comment. I'm just going over it really quick. I think I feel pretty good about a lot of these placements. If I looked at like who's next to who, I might have a problem with some of that, but I think for the most part I feel okay about this. Again, I'm not going to put anyone in D. I don't think anyone's that bad. Like maybe Atlas, maybe, but like Atlas can promote immediately, and even Atlas is a base level mercenary is like not that bad. Atlas is the only person that I could see potentially going in D, but I think even him, he offers enough utility to be in C. Maybe not. I don't know. But again, you deploy everyone all the time, so you're going to get utility out of everyone on every playthrough, really. But yeah, as always, thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. For anyone who's curious, we are going to be moving on to Fire Emblem 3. I don't know if I'm going to do any more Gaiden content before then. We'll see, I guess. But yeah, Fire Emblem 3 Book 1 will be next, and then should be a good time. So thanks everybody for watching, as always, and I will see you next time.